Hey everyone, winter is coming back with a vengeance as we go in through the new month here of February. We're going to be talking about winter storms that could be bringing some heavy snow, sleet, freezing rain, but also a rain and severe weather side, and what we call a sudden stratospheric warming event. Yes, the polar vortex could be back with a vengeance as well this month. We're going to be going over everything that you need to know in this weather forecast, so make sure, simply put, just subscribe to the channel, like the video, give it a thumbs up, and share this video with friends, family, and on social media. I definitely appreciate it. Let's get into the weather forecast here in the short term. Looking here at our high temperatures this Saturday afternoon. Yes, it is February 1st. Here are your highs. Warmest temperatures down here across Southern California into Southern Arizona will be well into the 70s across these regions. Eastern Colorado down into New Mexico, widespread 50s and 60s. Further north you go, a little bit colder up here into the Pacific Northwest, across Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, into Montana and Wyoming. A lot of those areas will be in the 20s and 30s for highs this afternoon. Now let's look here at the high temperatures this afternoon in the central U.S. Nice return flow across the plains all the way up to South Dakota. We could be into the 60s this afternoon. A little bit cooler further to the east, so if you're into the Midwest, especially the upper Midwest there, Minnesota, Wisconsin, over there toward Michigan, temperatures will be into the 20s and 30s, 40s the further south you go, and then of course toward the Gulf Coast like Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama will be in the 60s this afternoon. How about the east? Well, still Arctic air continuing to remain in place from New York State into Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. We're definitely seeing highs. Cold again today, single digits and teens for highs. And you look at the wind chills today, they're going to be below zero, 5 to 10 degrees below zero here from Maine back into upstate New York, into Vermont and New Hampshire, and even colder than that in Quebec. So if you are venturing outdoors in these areas, make sure to bundle up and with several layers, and because frostbite can occur in as little as 20 to 30 minutes in wind chills of 5 to 10 degrees below zero. Further to the south, the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, 20s and 30s, and then look at the beautiful 60s, 70s, and yes, in South Florida, back into the 80s this afternoon. Let's look at the precipitation here as we go through the weekend across the United States as a whole. We have a big atmospheric river, what we call the Pineapple Express, moving into Northern California. Heavy snow and higher elevations. The Sierras are going to get absolutely crushed by snow, and then we got a very heavy atmospheric river of rain across portions there of Northern California. We move it into this afternoon and this evening. Notice how we continue to just see an influx of moisture from the eastern Pacific Ocean into California, but also neighboring states of Oregon, Nevada, Idaho, and Utah, and even some of that stretching as far east as western Wyoming. A little bit of some snow up here in the upper Midwest could bring us some shovelable snow into parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin here through your Saturday and into the Sunday time frame. Some of that will be moving into Michigan as well, but look at it continuing in through the day tomorrow. We just have an atmospheric river, and that takes you all the way into Sunday night and even into daybreak on Monday. So a widespread Pineapple Express there across Northern California, and this could be giving us, this is just through the weekend, potentially 2 feet of moisture here into the northern Sierras and the northern terrain of California. Heavy moisture, 1 to 4 inches of rain, even extending in as far east as Wyoming there, and a lot of this will be in snow and higher elevations. Could be seeing up to 98 inches there worth of snow, believe it or not, in the Cascades, the Sierras, and parts of the Rockies, central Idaho, western Wyoming, parts of Montana there, northern Utah and around Salt Lake City, northern Nevada, even parts of Colorado there, seeing some pretty heavy snow going through the weekend time frame. And looking at the United States as a whole, we do have that Clipper system bringing snow across the north, the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, over there into Michigan. That'll stretch further east there toward the northeast. Could be seeing a general 1 to 3 inches in those areas, maybe just enough to shovel here as we go through the weekend up to the north. Let's look here at our temperatures going through this upcoming week and going really up to February 10th. Okay, so we're going to see the coldest of air through the 10th of the time frame here of February. Further to the north, mainly into southern Canada and the Pacific Northwest, but we're seeing the mild air here in red and oranges across portions of the deep south and across the eastern United States. And if you look at the precipitation anomaly, going to be still very active. A lot of what's happening in California here going through the next 10 days is going to be happening really, again, over the next week here. And then that moisture will be moving eastward, a weak La Nina type of setup here where we have more moisture across the Ohio Valley up into the northeast. And yes, that will include the I-95 corridor, and we could be seeing some heavier moisture there. Let's talk about the west first. And extending past this weekend, that atmospheric river, the Pineapple Express, will continue as we go into Monday, Tuesday the 4th. Notice as we go into Wednesday, some of that moisture migrating further to the south, but the ongoing drought across Southern California will lessen the threat for some heavy moisture. Will kind of eat away at that precipitation shield. And then here comes another storm as we go into Thursday the 6th and Friday the 7th. That'll be a quick hitter, but definitely aggravating more of the rivers here and even a lot of the, low-lying areas, if you will, the foothill region, because we already have saturated soil at this point. So flash flooding, mudslides, avalanches, something like that could definitely happen across the west here. So be mindful of that. This is the totality of rainfall we'll be seeing between now and Monday, February 10th. Notice rainfall totals could be approaching 2 feet in parts of Northern California here and a widespread 3 to 7 inches across the Pacific Northwest. And a lot of this will be coming in the form of snow. Looking here at snowfall, the Sierra is going to get multiple feet of snow. Parts of the Cascades, the Rockies here, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, all the way down to Utah, Nevada, Colorado, you name it. A lot of the ski resorts out west, the watersheds out west, definitely going to get replenishment of the snow. And we could be seeing nearly 200 inches of snow between now and February 10th in some of these areas. Again, especially the Sierras. Now, looking at the United States as a whole, the central and eastern U.S. more so into the upcoming week here. Got a couple clipper systems across the north that'll bring some lighter snowfall, no blockbuster snows through the middle of the week. We have a weaker system developing by the middle of next week here into Wednesday, February 5th. That low will be up here in Colorado. Might have to watch for a freezing rain sleet setup somewhere in the Midwest here as this system brings warm air advection from the Gulf to the north and that colder air very shallow across those areas of maybe even Nebraska, Iowa, northern Illinois. It's something to keep an eye on. And then as we go into Thursday, we got to keep an eye on that ice storm threat potentially into parts of Iowa, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, Michigan, especially lower Michigan, into northern Indiana, northern Ohio. Something to keep an eye on that Wednesday the 5th into Thursday the 6th time frame. Snowfall further to the north, and then just rain showers, maybe some severe weather on the southern side of this system. And that severe weather threat could actually extend all the way up into the lower Ohio River Valley as we go into the end of next week. And here comes another storm right on its heels, potentially a little bit further south this time as that colder air is battling further south, battling that warmer air. And we could have that snow line just a tad bit further south. So places like Milwaukee, Des Moines, Chicago, La Crosse, Grand Rapids could be seeing some heavier snow potentially by next weekend, which would be Super Bowl weekend as well. Looking here at the snowfall just over the next 10 days, looking at the snowfall in the Pacific Northwest, going to be multiple feet out there. Heavy snowfall across the north, and then picking up with the snow and the pinks here across Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and upstate New York especially, but even southeastern Canada. Our friends in Ontario, Quebec also going to get a fair share of some heavy snow, really on the order of around 5 to 10 inches along a lot of these areas, maybe up to a foot in some areas here in the Northeast like Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York. Let's talk about this polar vortex, okay? A lot of people probably already talking about this, what could happen in the middle of February. Let's kind of break it down for you simply here. The polar vortex is strong, and when the polar vortex is strong, the cold air is locked up to the north. It doesn't have any chance to move further south. When the polar vortex is weak, it begins to spill colder air further south into the United States. So notice right here today, present time, it is strong, so we're not seeing cold air really that much in the United States. Watch as we move it through time, as we go into the middle of next week. Notice how it stretches further to the south, and that's kind of like a rubber band. If you're kind of pulling on a rubber band, it's going to stretch, right? That's kind of what the polar vortex is doing. And then looking as we go into the late next week time frame, notice the warming over here into portions of Eurasia. We're definitely seeing the potential of a sudden stratospheric warming event where the stratosphere warms, and if the stratosphere warms, that means where we live in the troposphere is going to cool because of all the warming above us, okay? That's how it works. And looking here as we go into the second week of February, notice we start to get warming not only in Eurasia over here toward portions of Europe and Asia, but we also get warming over Alaska and the Aleutian Islands over here as well, and that is going to really just invigorate the sudden stratospheric warming event, and we could have a legit polar vortex split. And what that means is this could be a more severe case of cold air, similar to what we had in 2018, potentially 2019. So something we'll keep an eye on as we go into the second week or so of February, or the middle of the month, around the 10th through the 17th. We're going to start to see some of that colder air initially spilling south. How intense or how widespread this cold air will be remains to be seen, but it definitely will be squashing this ridge of warmer air further down to the south near the Gulf of Mexico and into the east. And how far south again it gets, how intense the cold air gets, will be yet to be hashed out at this point. But looking at the active weather, the precipitation, going to look very similar to what you would see for a La Nina pattern, as we have the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley in the mid-south, all the way to the mid-Atlantic, Great Lakes Northeast, well above average with precipitation. And yes, by the way, the Pacific Northwest will get a little bit more inactive than it is now, but it will still remain active there into the middle of February. Here's the heavy rain setup. Dixie Alley all the way up toward the northeast, I-95 corridor, heavy rain setup into the second week or middle of February. Snowfall will be not trailing that far to the north. Again, it'll be, moving further to the south. So places like, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia, maybe even here some cold air damming into the western parts of North Carolina with the Smoky Mountains down here and the Appalachians. That could give us some, colder air and then some snow if we have moisture in those areas into the middle of February. We'll continue to track everything here along the lines of winter storms, severe weather, and the polar vortex, whether or not we have a sudden stratospheric warming event, a polar vortex stretching, or even a polar vortex split. Something to keep an eye on as we go into the middle of February. But again, winter is not over. Don't, throw in the towel yet on winter, okay? We have a long ways to go. We just entered February, and we even know that even in March, we can get winter weather. So we'll keep tracking it for you here. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, but also turn on post notifications so you're notified for any future videos and live streams. Another video likely out this evening. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, share this video with friends, family, and on social media. Leave a comment down below if you have any comments, questions, and concerns. I'll get to those after the video, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their Saturday out there.